Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. Um, we've had a crazy busy. I don't even remember when we recorded last, but since I've talked to you last,
I know, I don't even remember either. It's
I
been
think
a
it
while.
was, yeah, sometime early last week
Like,
or
yeah,
last
almost
weekend
like
or
2 weeks
something.
ago. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Because I took off last Thursday and me and my mom took Eleanor to the zoo. It was beautiful weather and I had to get my hair done. So then we went and I got my hair done afterwards. And then she had so much fun. It was probably the best zoo trip I've had in a while because she can walk and she was just like way more active and interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. And then she wanted to go back. She woke up the next day and kept saying zoo, zoo, zoo. So Rob's like, oh, maybe I'll take her. He ended up taking her um, again this week on Wednesday, I think. So she went
Oh,
2 weekends in a row. But it's nice because we have the membership, so we can just kind of take her wherever.
whenever.
And
Yeah.
then we found this really cool place near us, and it's like the Animal Conservancy or something like that. So they take in animals that no longer can live in the wild, and they're like very exotic. So they had like a panther there. They had a porcupine, which I'd
Mm.
never seen a porcupine. They had these like albino alligators, but that one was like super cool because they also did, which it was like started at one, so it was like right at Eleanor's nap, but they did like a little display. So they would bring animals out and they would talk about it, bring it around and let you touch them. So she touched a bunch of turtles. There were some
Oh,
turtles that were like literally the size of a huge dog. They had an emu there. That was pretty cool. So this place was like really cool and it was really close to our house. So we're kind of excited about
oh,
that. So we've
perfect.
had a very adventurous few weeks. But I had my 16-week appointment yesterday and I had a really big scare. Like I was
What?
like really freaking out. Yeah. So I feel like everything's been fine. And I've had way less anxiety during this pregnancy where I'm like questioning everything, where I kind of did that with Eleanor because it's the first time going through it. You don't know the feelings. So I have just been feeling a lot of like cramping,
Mm-hmm.
which I know can be like growing pains, but I didn't really think anything of it. But anyway, so I go to the appointment, we talk about everything, everything's good. We actually talked about like VBAC versus C-section. It sounds like it's my choice, but
Oh,
we
good.
only went into it a little bit. But
Yeah,
anyways,
but you have time.
yeah. So normally in these appointments, because I don't have a ultrasound, we'll either do like the Doppler or sometimes they have like a different ultrasound machine that's like movable in the room. So they only had the Doppler this time. So she was like going to do the Doppler, and I'm like laying there. And honestly, like 5 minutes go by and she hasn't found a heartbeat. And I'm like sitting
Mm.
there internally, like just freaking out. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, she's like, "I know it can be scary." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It is really scary." And she's like, "I hear movement." She's like, "I'm just having a hard time locating it. They're small. Like sometimes it can be difficult
Yeah.
to get it." So like literally it felt like 10 minutes. I honestly don't know how long it took her to find it, but it was a long time. And she finally found it at the end. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I could cry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a scare.
Yeah.
Did not like that.
But
But
I guess like 12, 16 weeks, they are small, but I don't know. Like 16 weeks, they're getting bigger. Maybe he
she
was just
just,
moving around.
yeah, she said he was really low. Like he was really low. So she was just having a hard time like getting it.
Mm.
But I was like, for a minute, I was like, oh my gosh. So what am I feeling? Like, were those cramps something I was feeling? Like that was all running through my head. And I was like, oh, jeez. I prefer just ultrasounds. Like the appointment I went in before that, which I think was 12 weeks, she was like, I always like to use the ultrasound thing first because they're so little and it can take some time to find it with the Doppler. So she like did that one first because they had it in the room. But it must have been taken or used by somebody else this time. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh gosh.
I'm also having like crazy weird dreams. Like I had three last night that I remember pretty vividly. Like one, I was a twin and we were like at a dance class and then things were very dystopian. She ended up like getting killed.
Oh my gosh.
And then I don't remember, I woke up, I think. And then the second one, I was actually working at the movie theater, and I haven't had a movie theater dream in a long time. So, side note for people who don't know, Alyssa and I both worked at movie theaters,
Hmm.
like as our first ish jobs. And yeah, it was just like opening day of Lion King, I think. And it was so busy, and we were just like running out of cups, and like the popcorn machines were different. Like I had like come back or something. I don't know. Everything was like different. And yeah, that one was really, I woke up and I was like, what in the world
I
dreaming?
had a bunch of those like movie theater dreams when I was pregnant with Axel. Like we were
Me
always running out of
too.
popcorn bags, out of cups, like running out of
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
And we were like calling the other movie theaters, and like in my dream, you know how sometimes when you're running, you can't run? But this
Yeah.
was like I was trying to call and I couldn't call, like I couldn't physically do it. And so I kept trying and trying. It was just like very strange.
It
So
scarred us
must
for
be a pregnancy thing
life.
to have.
Have movie theater dreams.
Uh-huh.
Oh my word.
Yeah. How are things with you guys?
Yeah, I've been having weird dreams too. I mean, I told you that one about you, um,
Yeah.
about how you had a girl instead of a boy, just randomly. I also had a dream that Austin and I were like divorced or getting
Oh no.
divorced, and he was like, this was like the second dream though, because it like had already happened. I don't know. I just remembered it when it was happening, and he was like being so nice about it, but like trying to be like, yeah, no, we're not being back together, and blah blah. And I woke up like so irritated because I was like, what in the world did you do in my dream?
I've had a lot of those about Rob. Rob's like, why do you always have bad dreams about me? There was a period, and this was like some other things were going on within our relationship when Rob was like still struggling with recovery. And I would have a lot of dreams about him like hurting me. Like one time he ran me over with the car, one time he like shot me. And I think I just had a lot of pent up anxiety about him at
Yeah,
that
it must have been.
time.
But yeah,
It's so
no.
funny.
Oh, I was yeah. Austin was divorcing me. It was horrible. And then I just found out that my computer, you know how my computer hasn't worked with the
Yeah.
camera.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was going to diagnose it and it like says, "Oh, just open your camera app and like test it out that way too." The camera is broken. It doesn't work. There's like an
Oh,
error.
really?
So like I just submitted like a request to like the support of the company, but I have 26 days left in my warranty since I
Oh,
bought it
jeez.
almost a year ago. So thank God I figured that out now because I thought I was going insane that it just wasn't working.
I know, right? Well, glad you know what it is, but what the heck? It's only a year old and you're
Not
having.
even a year old, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of
Ugh,
computer is it?
it's a Lenovo.
Oh, huh. Those are generally
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah, I bought like a personal one. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that happened. And then we also graduated from IVF this week.
Woohoo!
So, we are on to normal pregnancy. I get to stop my shots tonight. I am so freaking excited. Today
Yay!
is the last one. Ugh.
I'm
But they
excited
have
for
just
you.
hurt like this whole entire week. Like worse than they ever have. I don't know if it's the anticipation of ending them or what.
Yeah.
And then my mama bear, like I am just not a happy mom right now. My
No.
child got bit twice at daycare yesterday.
Oh no.
Yeah. And you get like a little report. It tells you like
Yeah.
a friend bit Axel. And I'm like, okay. Like, I know I'm a first time mom. I have a lot
Yeah.
more emotions than other moms. But, and like, it was just described to me by my mom because she told me. And then I didn't see him until later that day or whatever. So I called the daycare and I was like, hey, so like, walk me through this. Like, what happened? What are we doing to make sure it doesn't happen again? um,
Yeah.
because like they described it as like one bite, like on his arm right here, and it didn't break the skin, so it's just like red. And they like gave him some TLC. Basically, the girl or the kid, or I don't know who it is, the friend wanted the toy that Axel was playing with, and instead of going after the toy, they went after him. And so then you would think, okay, they got one bite, then you would clean it up. No, he has like a bite here and he has a bite here on his hand too.
Wow.
So that's why I was like, okay, so what do we do to make sure that this kid doesn't bite my kid again? Like,
Right.
clearly they're biting kids. And she's like, well, we assess it, after they do like 2 or 3 times and they go on a behavior plan, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
They have
every
to bite
single
people
part
two
of
or three
me,
times.
every single part of me is like, get this kid out of the classroom. Like, I don't want them with my kid. But also, like, it is also part of normal development.
It is,
So
yeah.
they just don't know how to communicate. So they decide to bite. I don't know. I just don't understand how the kid was able to bite my kid twice without the teacher stepping in to do something about it.
I like to me, and this is like the hardest thing to wrap my head around daycare because I think the workers, like my mom works at a daycare, she's a wonderful person. She's a great like caretaker. I think the problem is you have like one person or two people in the room to like 30 kids. And
Hmm.
I can't imagine the chaos that is to,
And
and
how
I'm
annoying
sure
it
they don't
is.
have eyes on every single kid at all times. There's just no way that's happening. And so these things, they're bound to kind of happen, unfortunately. Like
Hmm.
I would be in the same boat as you. I'd be so upset if Eleanor got bit.
Yeah, because like what? Like that's where I'm putting my baby so that I can work, and they're supposed to be safe.
Safe.
And somehow the person, like, I clearly know my child, he probably was screaming the first time it happened, so by the
Yeah.
second time, someone should have been there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
Oh,
so I
that's
had my
hard.
words with the director in a nice way. It was very nice. We were very pleasant. I needed to understand what they were doing about it,
Hmm.
and she explained the process. But yeah, I'm not very happy, and I don't think I'll be very happy either if it happens again.
Oh yeah, if it happens again, I'd be like, uh.
Yeah, I even called my sister and I'm like, "What are the normal practices like from your daycare experience? Like, is it like 2 bites and the person's like done or out of the room or moved to a different room or like how does this work?"
Hmm.
And so I don't really know. She gave me a bunch of advice, but yeah.
Yeah.
She also
Oh,
said the
that's
same
hard.
thing, like they can't be everywhere at all the times. So
Oh, poor Axel.
yeah. So that's fun. That's my
Oh,
life.
fun, fun,
What's
fun,
going on?
fun, 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 fun. Okay. Man, we had some updates. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the Mom Era podcast. My name is Megan.
And I'm Alyssa.
Today's episode is going to be super personal and heartfelt because we're going to talk about how our relationships with our spouses have been affected by having a kid. Personally, I feel like it's been affected a lot. I think both in a positive and negative way, but it definitely has been affected. Having children completely rocks the foundation you and your spouse have built together. It challenges each of you in different ways and can sometimes feel like you're navigating uncharted waters, regardless of how long you've been together. Just throwing that kid in just completely changes everything.
Hmm. Yeah, we're opening up about the ups and downs, the moments of disconnect, the steps we're taking to maintain our connection amidst the whirlwind of parenting. The journey is far from easy, but we hope by sharing our experiences, we can offer some insight, comfort, and maybe even a few laughs along the way. So, we're going to dive into this conversation about evolving dynamics of relationships post kids.
So, I think we broke this episode down into three major parts. So, we're going to talk about what the initial impact of having a baby for us, what that looked like, specifically the newborn stage. And then we'll talk about what the long term impact of having a child for us kind of look like. Because I think they're similar, but can be a little bit different. And then talk a little bit about how to try to maintain that connection with your spouse or husband
Hmm.
because it's pretty interesting. So the initial impact of having a baby, so specifically that newborn stage, there has been a lot of immediate changes in the relationship. So there's been this shift from priorities. Previously, we were able to spend as much time in our relationship and that was our central focus. But now the baby's the central focus, and it really leaves less time and energy for each other. We're both taking on new roles and responsibilities as parents, which can definitely be overwhelming and stressful. It definitely was during the newborn stage. And
Mhm.
then you're so sleep deprived, and you're waking up with the baby so often. You're getting like what, 2 maybe 3 hours of sleep, at least if you're nursing breastfeeding. And those irregular sleep patterns can cause like irritability and decrease patience with each other, which I know we definitely felt at points.
Yeah, and even the emotional and physical exhaustion affects intimacy and communication. You're more likely to just kind of snap sometimes in terms of communication. But the early stages can bring a decrease in sexual activity due to childbirth recovery because both parents are often too exhausted for physical intimacy. And then also being emotionally drained can reduce the desire for closeness or intimacy. I think
Hmm.
one thing just to add here too is you're doing so much tasking at that point,
Yeah.
like you feed the baby, pump or breastfeed, change the diaper, put it down, put it to sleep,
Hmm.
and then you're like, it's like you don't have time for other things outside of the tasks, or you just want to sit
Yeah.
and relax at that point.
Yeah. Plus, we're recovering, it takes so much time. I mean, you and I had different birth experiences, but we were both recovering in our own ways. And I think even like your postpartum anxiety, is that what you would call it, and my like postpartum depression played a role in all of that. So you're just like not feeling yourself, and you have so many different tasks, and it's wild. It's a wild
Mhm.
time.
It's a very wild time. And
Yeah.
you also feel like it's never going to end.
Yes, and it does. It goes by quick,
So
honestly.
fast. Yeah.
Hmm. So
Uh,
I'll talk about the initial change for us. The newborn stage, as first time parents, like I said, it was a wild ride. I think Rob and I worked really good as a team, but in hindsight, like looking back, it felt like we were definitely operating separately. So, right after bringing Eleanor home, we took turns handling things in shifts because we were really nervous for both of us to sleep, even when Eleanor
mhm.
was sleeping. It took us a bit of time, a few weeks actually, to be able to feel comfortable sleeping.
I don't know
Which
how you
is,
did that. I don't know
I
how
don't know
you did.
either. We won't do it again, but I think we just had so much anxiety afterwards,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what we were doing. So that caused I just very separate lives,
Mhm.
at the beginning. And though that initial fear faded, we did continue to like work in shifts and routines just to make sure we did get as much rest as possible.
Mhm.
One advantage I would say is that when I was on maternity leave, like managing the household felt more doable, even though it was like a crazy time. But like because we both weren't working and our major job was taking care of the baby, like it felt like all of that was pretty manageable. I think going back to work is when that became super
Mhm.
hard. But it still was like an immediate and significant shift in our relationship. Before Eleanor arrived, our focus was definitely on each other. And then suddenly there was so much less time and energy for us as a couple. However, we did make a point to eat dinner together every night, which did become a nice way to like regroup, reconnect on a daily basis. I think honestly, the newborn stage really highlighted the changes in our relationship. And it was then that we really decided to seek therapy. We wanted to ensure that our relationship could withstand the challenges of parenthood and that we were able to stay affectionate, a present for each other, maintain like effective communication with one another. Because I think parenthood really like puts all your flaws to the surface, whether it's your own personal flaws, the flaws within your relationship. Even though we've always had a strong bond, we've faced our share of challenges. And when we became parents, the issues that felt minor before suddenly felt much much bigger. So that
Mhm.
was kind of our newborn experience. It's honestly, I'm interested to talk about our newborn experience this time around, having a more fresh and different perspective, having done it once before, because like part of me is like, I don't fully remember. It's such
Yeah.
a crazy time. You're honestly just surviving that, like, looking back, I'm like, I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. No, I would say, ooh, I mean, I think you brought up a good point that I totally forgot about was that postpartum anxiety that I had. That was really hard for me in the beginning because I almost forget that that happened, but whatever, I survived. um so I would talk about our experience. We did things a little bit different. We did everything together, and that's kind of how we had operated in a relationship before. There was a lot less of separate things, like we would go grocery shopping together, we would go to the store together. So that was just like our comfort thing, to do things together. So we would wake up every single time the baby woke up. Austin would change it and feed him, and then I would pump, and within that whole time it would maybe take 30 minutes and we'd be back to bed because it'd be
You
the
were, like,
same amount of time.
sharing,
Yeah, we were
yeah.
like trying to get as much done as we could and then going back to bed.
Mhm.
So that worked for us. I did notice that, people had done it in shifts, and like maybe we would have been able to do that if I didn't have such postpartum anxiety where I felt
Yeah,
like I needed Austin with me at all times. I needed him to help me do everything just to like give us a little bit of a break, but we pretty much, to have our time, we would always put the baby back in the bassinet. The baby was never in the bed with us. We would spend time during the day, taking a nap during his first nap if we needed to. I think the hardest part for us was just like staying in the house. Like, I think
yeah.
at like 11 days old, we took him out because we were like, we need, we need to
Being
go,
cooped up, yeah, it's
yeah,
hard.
get breakfast. So we really focused on like, we like to go get breakfast. We focused on taking extra naps and cleaning the house together if we did clean. I felt like it was manageable until like Austin went back to work, because I think that was around like 2 months. And when Austin went back to work, it was like very emotionally draining for me
Mhm.
because like physically, I mean, I'm already tired. I'm already used to that whole routine. But like he would get home from work and I would be like, I gotta go. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go run to Target and walk around. So we, at that point, I felt a little bit more like, okay, you're able to just continue with your normal life, but my
yeah,
life is very different. And so that was hard. We so that first like 6 weeks, when you feel like you're recovering, you feel like crap, whatever, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is. After that, like, or even closer to the end of that, like I was just like really wanting that physical intimacy just with Austin. Like we were just like craving that for each other because it had been like so long,
yeah.
and just like wanted to be with each other. And so I feel like that was kind of a strain on the relationship on top of that, because you want to like recover, but you also want to, feel loved and like supported and cared for and stuff. And
Right, yeah.
so I think that was hard too.
It is hard. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think it's hard. We'll talk about it in the more long term, but I think intimacy can be hard even long term. I don't know if you guys have felt that, but it's just
Hmm.
like, I feel like we're constantly trying to find time for ourselves and then find time for each other.
Hmm.
And that looks different each day? So
Yeah.
it's difficult. But yeah, let's jump into the long term impacts of having a child. Now, when we say long term, obviously, we've only been parents for, a year and a half ish at this point. So this could definitely change. So, this is what it's been like for us, I would say, from infant to toddler. So, having navigated the initial challenges of caring for a newborn, we talked about above, parents often find themselves facing a new set of trials as their baby grows into a toddler. So while we may have settled into our parenting roles and developed a rhythm, the toddler years introduce a unique challenges that test, I think, our patience, our communication, and our teamwork in a lot of new ways.
Yeah, toddlers are now experiencing tantrums, emotional outbursts. They often show a strong preference for one parent over the other. Their increased mobility requires constant supervision to keep them safe. and even often going through inconsistent sleep patterns. All this can impact your personal relationship with your spouse.
All this has affected us. Like I said, I think because if this is what I felt for me, that parenthood brings all those flaws to the surface. Like I just feel like things I think that existed in our relationship before that were kind of like, this is fine. This doesn't impact me. Like, I'm a little irritated, but it's not that big of a deal. I think I've just felt much bigger. Like, for me, for example, I think I've struggled with patience. I think it's definitely something that's been brought to the forefront and that I've been focusing on a lot more. But because I'm kind of go, 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 like I have a hard time waiting on others, and having a baby and a toddler, like that just completely rocks your world if you're not a patient person.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've been just been working on that a lot. So, but I also think a lot of it right now, where it's like so prevalent, is that like a lot of my impatience stems from like feeling completely overwhelmed by the demands, like being a mom. I'm working, I'm trying to maintain friendships, I'm trying to stay connected with my family, trying to keep the house in order. I'm trying to be present for Rob. And then there's just so much more on top of that. I'm trying to prepare for the baby. I have to like switch out Eleanor stuff. So there's just always so much going on, so much going on in my head that like sometimes I can just be so overwhelmed. I think another challenge that Rob and I face is we operate at very different paces. And this was like again one of those things that was kind of like an ear like it irritated me before, but now it's just like, you know what I mean? It just like feels much different. Like I'm always on the go while Rob is more like laid back. And I feel like because we have this difference, I often take on more of like the extra tasks. So I like to, if we're going somewhere, I like to pack early so then I can like check it off my list. I'm at 16 weeks, so I'm starting to prepare for baby number two. I like to keep things organized. So I like to get a lot done and check them off my list early. Meanwhile, like Rob prefers to do things when they're needed. So, like, if we're going to go somewhere, he's going to pack right before we go. And like to me, that causes a lot of anxiety. Now, I'm like working through this in my own personal therapy, and trying to be okay with like his pace of things and my pace of things. But it's definitely just brought it to the forefront more because I feel like and this isn't necessarily a fault of Rob's, but I take on more because it causes me more anxiety, like just having everything to do like right before
Hmm.
something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to pack right before we leave because that causes me a lot of stress. So yeah, again, it's not wrong. It's just a different way of approaching it. I would say now we still somewhat divide our tasks, which is like super helpful. It gives us like our own personal time. It gives us our own personal time with Eleanor, and we often do a lot of things together too. Now we are able to kind of come back in a way, but we still do a lot of like separate things. So, for example, like once I get off work, I'll usually take over like hanging out with the baby while Rob cooks dinner. So, generally, he's able to cook dinner uninterrupted, I should say. But I think it's just helpful for a routine, but again, it just kind of can create that separate feeling.
Hmm.
I think another thing that we mentioned when we were talking through like the points of this is Eleanor does go through these, phases of mom, 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 and that makes Rob feel bad. And I think that can really affect our relationship because then I feel like he is craving like this intimacy from me and his daughter because he's feeling like somewhat rejected, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Which is like really, I can get it. It's really hard. I mean, she hasn't done that to me, so it's hard for me to like fully understand like how he's feeling, but it definitely can affect our day to day sometimes. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're like so tired, we're so exhausted. So we do have to be intentional about making that time for each other. We still plan date night, so once a week. which this might sound minimal to people, but like it's what we have carved out for ourselves right now. But once a week, we like spend the evening together, like watching our shows or doing whatever. And we're very intentional about planning and having that one night for each other. Now, it could happen more than one night, but that's like the night we're like, okay, this is happening. And it's usually on Wednesdays. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, us right now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that goes on in the first year, year and a half, and I feel like it evolves multiple
Yeah.
times too. I would say ours has been ever changing as well.
Hmm.
I think it's just because of the way that our family functions a little bit, where I had gone back to work and then I was a stay at home mom, and then I went back to work. And then when Austin works, and then when he doesn't work, it's just kind of different every stage or season that we go through,
Yeah.
just because someone else is the primary parent at different times. So it's not always the same kind of separation or setup like the way you guys have it. I would say one of the things that we did to really prioritize our relationship was to move the baby into his own room at 3 months old. It was almost like I got my room back. Like I had my
Yeah.
space back. It made me feel so good about it. Like, and he was fine. He was safe in his room. He was in his crib. No, no issues. It was just so much helpful to have like our time. And then as we continued going over the first year of his life and keeping his bedtime consistent at, I think I've talked about it before, but we have an early bedtime that allows us to have that time afterwards at the end of the day. And I'm also out of breath because I don't know why. So sorry.
I feel you.
um but we usually like that allows us to have like our cleanup and then our focus time with each other, whether it's just sitting there on their phones, watching a show, relaxing, talking about the next day. We like to walk to the mailbox or sit outside and watch the sun go down. So, different things that we focus on. I think the hardest part for us has been the stage where Axel is a toddler
Yeah.
and we're both working. Because emotionally and mentally, like I'm drained because Austin works 7 days a week. I work 5 days a week. Even on the weekends, I am full time mom. So it
Yeah.
doesn't stop. There's not like a break. Granted, when he gets home, he always does bath. I do lotion. We put the baby to bed together. So he helps out and when he's home, when he's able to, or if he's not working, but it's still like a lot, like physically and mentally on me right now because of just our schedules. And then come the winter, it'll be so different.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm always go, 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 similar to you, and always planning ahead. I have to plan ahead because otherwise things don't get done or we forget things. Same as Rob, Austin is very much like, oh, we're going to prepare the day or two before. We're going to do it like right before we go. And that has caused him to forget the diaper bag sometimes. So we'll go out to eat and I stick the napkin around Axel's neck. So things like that happen. But I think it's harder for our relationship just because of the stress on both of us from like work and baby. And then you're a lot more likely to like snap at each other. Or if I'm in a bad mood, I was in a bad mood yesterday because someone bit my child.
Yeah.
I'm in a bad mood. And so then I come home and Austin, is like annoyed that I'm in a bad mood. And so then I have to like regroup and pull myself out of it. But I'm so irritated that someone bit my child. So it's really hard like that, because why isn't he as irritated as I am? But he doesn't have the same emotions that I have. So. So yeah, I feel like it ebbs and flows. The hardest part for me now is probably this toddler stage. When we were both working and he was more like 6 to 8 months old, it was very different. Now we're into everything and doing everything.
I feel that too. Like, and I also think it's harder too because there's a lot more like meltdowns. And I think that can leave both of us feeling way more drained
Hmm.
than if there wasn't. And so there's just a lot more emotional energy because you're like helping them regulate. And then you're, it's just, it is, it's a lot. I know Rob, like at the end of the day, once I take over, some days he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Like
Yeah.
that was a lot. Like
Yeah.
when he took Eleanor to the zoo on her own, he said she was like perfect. She didn't have any breakdowns, but he's like doing all that alone is so difficult. And,
Mhm.
and I definitely feel that. So then there's just days sometimes lately where neither of us feel like doing the dishes.
Yeah.
You missed the dishes once in our house, like one day in our house, and it's like a bomb went off.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you feel that way.
Mhm.
Again, I think it's we're home all day. Like I just feel like our house is so chaotic. But yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how this changes too with baby number two.
I also feel like with the boy, he's jumping on me. He's
Yeah.
climbing on me. He's pulling my hair. He's smacking me in the face. He's just like it's just so much energy and it's like oh it's just like physically so much on me. So I'm like I can't even lift you up. Like you're
I
too heavy.
know. I know. I was carrying her to bed last night because I still like we do our nighttime routine downstairs and then she'll say goodnight to Rob and I'll carry her upstairs. And I'm like having such a hard time carrying her lately. Like you're so heavy. Carrying her like a baby, I should say, because I feel like when I carry her on my hip, it's much easier. Like you're just,
Oh,
I'm
he
like, oh
doesn't
my
even let
gosh.
us carry him like a baby anymore.
Oh yeah, she.
Mm-mm.
It's only when we're putting her to bed she'll have her little blankie up to her nose.
Oh,
Oh goodness, yeah. So lots of changes. It changes with the season, and again, it's going to look so different as our child ages, and also as we bring another one in.
mhm.
But let's talk through a little bit of like ways to maintain connections with your spouse. So a good one is prioritizing date nights and those mini breaks together. So find time to schedule regular date nights, even if it's just at home after the kids are asleep. So if you have a hard time finding childcare, that's perfectly fine. And that's what we do a lot is we use that time after Eleanor goes to bed to prioritize each other and when we can try to make it out of the house for date nights. But also try to take those short breaks during the day to connect, such as having a cup of coffee together, taking a brief walk. You talked about walking to your mailbox or sitting on your porch. Like those are really great times to just like have those connects. Rob and I do that every night at dinner. We always do a check-in every night, which was something one of our therapists has suggested. So just make sure to ask how they're feeling, how their day was, and just connect in that like emotional level.
Yeah. Communicating openly and honestly with one another is another way. Making it a habit to ask each other about your day, feelings, needs. Regular communication helps you stay connected and aware of each other's experiences. Regularly expressing gratitude for each other's efforts, big or small. So, like yesterday, even though I was in a bad mood, or I wasn't even in that bad of a mood, I was just like more annoyed.
Yeah.
But like Austin filled up my water bottle before we went to bed and grabbed my ice pack for my shot before I even had to ask him. So I made sure that I said thank you for that. But we usually try to do this either when we're driving home, we'll talk on the phone, or once we get home and we're eating dinner, or once we put the baby to bed. That's usually when we'll have our time to communicate and just see how the day was and everything. It does get like hard, I feel like, because that was one of my concerns where I'm like, okay, like, I ask about your day every day,
Hmm.
or I try to make an effort to ask, and you don't ask me. You just think I'm just going to tell you. Um,
Yeah.
so that's conversations that we've had too, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm probably going to tell you, but it would just be nice to know that you even want to hear it.
Yeah, you care.
Yeah.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So sometimes men don't always think that way and they're just like, oh, she's going to tell me. So yeah, but that's kind of where we focus on the regular communication is right after he goes to bed or on our way home. But I'm just like sometimes I need that that drive home to not talk to anyone
Yes.
because I'm so over talking to people. So
That's how I can get too. Yeah, I would say Rob's really good at this one. Rob's like very in tune with his emotions. He's really good at expressing gratitude. Like the days that I wake up with Eleanor, I'll make him coffee. And every time I do, he's like, thank you so much for making me coffee. And I think he's just really good at like expressing the gratitudes for the little things. And I think this is just something I can do better at. Because again, sometimes just feel like my brain is so full that like I'm so overloaded that I can't think of those little things,
Mhm.
which I don't want to be that person. I want to be that person that does express gratitude. So it's always a good one.
Yeah. I think Austin's just not a very emotional person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so either, which, everybody's different.
Mhm.
Another way to kind of maintain that connection is sharing those parenting and household responsibilities to prevent that burnout for one person and making sure both partners have time to rest and recharge. So, approaching those responsibilities and challenges as a team, discussing and agreeing on the strategies for parenting, how you're going to discipline and managing the household tasks just to make sure you're both on the same page. This was something we really had to do a shift from when we had a kid because, like, honestly, and this is not necessarily a fault of Rob, but I think it's just the way women and men are generalized to grow up is that women like think about all those things and men don't. And so having a kid and Rob shifting to the stay-at-home um, dad, taking on a lot of those household responsibilities, it took a little bit of shift in his mindset to like actually think of those things, if that makes sense. And take on some of that mental load. Something that my therapist had always suggested for us, and I kind of bought the book. I bought the stuff to do it, was something called Fair Play. So if there's people out there struggling with like maintaining the tasks around the household, this really helps you. It's like a exercise on figuring out like who's owning what so that you're as a woman not owning the mental load and just telling your husband, hey, can you do this? Because yes, they're doing the task, but you're still so overwhelmed with that mental load. So if you give them the task and say, this is yours, you're always going to do it, you don't ever have to think about it again. And they're like taking it on. And that
Mhm.
was like very it was very good for us to establish that as a team and figure out like this is my stuff, this is your stuff, this is the stuff we're gonna like tag team.
Yeah. I mean, we had kind of done that already, just like pre-baby, because that's just like kind of how we operated.
Hmm.
And I couldn't like mentally hold all of it in. Or if I do end up, because when he is working, there's some stuff that, a lot falls on me, then I do just like make a list so that I can get it out of my brain and then deal with it later. But yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach dividing up the tasks. Another way is finding moments of intimacy. So, small gestures like holding hands, hugging, kissing can maintain physical connection if needed, though it may seem unromantic. Schedule time for intimacy to ensure it remains a priority. That one's very hard for us when we're both working and Austin's working because he's getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And
Yeah.
who in their mind wants to do anything intimate after you have like 4 or 5 hours of sleep? No one. Yeah, I do prioritize like the hugging or holding hands or kissing or snuggling before bed, things like that.
Yeah, that's one, like the small gestures is again another one of those things like the gratitudes that I sometimes can struggle with. And I feel like too that there is a blurring of like Rob and I are in the home all day together. So it's not like I come home from work and I'm like, hey babe, mwah,
Hmm.
because I've been here all day. So those little small gestures sometimes can just and I don't want to say that I'm not a super affectionate person, but I'm not the most affectionate person.
Hmm.
And so some of these things do take effort for me. And I have to like, okay. So there's like natural points in the day where I try to do this, like when we wake up in the morning before we go to bed, after I get off work. So I'm trying to find these like natural breaks where I can like insert them. But yeah, it can be difficult for me, at least.
Yeah.
Another one is to support each other's needs and interests and encourage each other to pursue hobbies outside of parenting. So, this is something um, both of us try to encourage each other to do. I think Rob has a lot of inside the house hobbies. I wouldn't say my hobbies are like all in the I mean, most of my hobbies, I'm like hanging out with people or going bowling or something, something like that. But I've been really trying to encourage Rob to like pursue hobbies that allow him to like exit the home, so he gets that time to himself away. But we're pretty good at this, I think. I think the thing for me is that my hobbies and interests after having a kid kind of fall to the wayside. So sometimes I have to think like, okay, what did I used to like doing? I just got back into reading. Like I didn't read for a really long time because I just forgot about it or I didn't have time for it. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
get back into some of these things. But my one therapist would always ask me like, what do you like to do for fun? And I'm like, I don't know anymore. Like,
I
I
don't
have to
have an
think about
answer.
that again.
Ugh, yeah. No, this one's harder for us. I feel like you guys do a better job at it, but we just don't have the time. And I have time to do things on the weekends, but a lot of that includes taking Axel with me. So if I'm going to see someone or do something, Axel's coming with me. And so it's not a lot of like individual hobby or interests that I have. But it's nice to like see him have fun too. So
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like Austin has a lot of hobbies.
yeah, but he doesn't have time to do anything with them.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard
Hmm.
being a parent
Yeah,
and doing things for yourself.
yeah. Finding activities you both enjoy and make time for them. So that's what we like to do more. We like to, when we're both off, go to breakfast, find things we want to redo in the house, redo them together, take Boopy somewhere fun. So those are things that we like to do, and we usually try to make time for them because that is the time that we have.
Yeah. We are better, I think, at the joint activities than we are. Well, I would say Rob's pretty good at his own hobbies. I would say I'm better at the joint activities than I am at my own personal ones. Like every weekend, we're typically finding something to go and do together as a family or even as a couple. We like to Rob likes video games. I'm not a huge video gamer, but we'll sometimes play these like games together on a console, and that can be fun. Or we'll play board games together. Or I don't like doing things around the house, like fixing things. So I'm gonna call somebody for that. But yeah, I think we're pretty good at finding like activities together that we both enjoy.
Well, I think that is it for our ways to maintain connection with our husbands. We hope these tips, strategies, different ways of thinking about things are helpful for you in your relationship with your spouse. I know it can be hard, especially even newborn stage, infant stage, toddler stage, 4 or 5 year old stage. Just being a parent in general is hard, and navigating that relationship as a parent and then also with your spouse is a whole nother level. And every day we do it. We just do it.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
thanks for joining us this week. We're going to go into our mom eras. Mom era are you in, Megan?
Okay, so I have two right now. So the first I would say I'm in definitely prepping for baby mom era. I was getting a little stressed because I hadn't done anything. Now I'm only 16 weeks, but I feel like with your first baby, you have this like natural timeline because you have a baby shower. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, once I have my baby shower, like I'm going to get everything organized and done because basically at that point you have everything you need. Whereas now everything's kind of packed away. And I'm like, when do I start doing all of this? So I made myself a list by month on like what things I want to get done each month. This month, my thing was to pull out all the old clothes bins and pull out any clothes that I can use for baby number two that are more like gender neutral or I don't know. Some of them I'm just gonna like sacks. I don't care if they're girly. The, the,
You're just going
the
to reuse
boy's
them.
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, they're expensive. I'm just not. And a lot of them are hand me down. So I'm like, I'm just gonna use them. It's not that big of a deal. So did that. So that's been an era I feel much better having like a plan and knowing when I like want to do things. And then Eleanor is in her counting era. So for a long time, probably since 12 months, maybe before, I can't remember specifically, she's been able to count to two, like one, two. and she'll count everything. 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, now she can count to 10, and literally started like this week where all of a sudden she was like counting to 10. And I was like, girl, Rob one day was like, I'm pretty sure I heard her, because we would count to 5 a lot too. So she was like starting to learn to 5 because we'd play hide and seek. So we'd count to 5 and then we'd say, ready or not, here we go. So we weren't even sure if she knew past 5 all that well. But then one day we counted to 5 and she like did the rest. And we're like, whoa. So we're in our counting era. So now like we're outside playing and she's like, 1, 2, 3. She's just like counting everything. It's just really cute.
Oh,
What about you?
we I'm feeling better. Tuesday I felt like crap. Like literal crap. Like I didn't eat anything but like strawberries and yogurt, and I forced myself to eat a banana nut loaf from Starbucks.
Oh, jeez.
And then I like literally it just felt like from 4 a.m. until the time I went to bed that I was just going to vomit at all times of the
Oh,
day.
no.
So that was fun, but I feel a lot better today and even like the rest of this week. So that's good. But that was not a fun day. Austin's always also working closer to the home, so he's bringing his water truck home every day, which is this huge yellow truck that sits in our driveway. And Axel's so funny with it. Like he'll just like he was like scared of it yesterday. Like he loves cars, loves trucks, walks up to
Yeah.
anything, touches all the tires, and then yesterday was scared of this truck.
No.
But we finally got him to walk up and like touch the tires and pointing, and he was all excited about it. So
Aw.
we are going to this ton of trucks thing this weekend. It's where your cousin works at her
Oh.
township hall.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, so yeah, to look at more trucks. We also went to the fair this past weekend.
Yeah, how was that?
It was good, but it rained. So we were looking at the animals and we are looking at the pigs and the sheep, and they're all low enough for him to touch. And like they were super friendly, all the animals. Every time we got to an animal, he'd look at it and then just go, all done, all done. Like, okay, I guess we don't like animals. So they were doing a truck pull where like a tractor will pull and see how far your tractor can pull this truck thing, whatever,
Mhm.
before it rained. He absolutely loved that,
Yeah.
and didn't want to stop watching it, but of course it was pouring rain, so they stopped them. But yeah, so
I feel like he would like that monster truck
yeah,
jam. Is that what it's
hmm
called?
Monster Jam or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so now I know my child doesn't really like animals and only likes cars.
Definitely a car boy, just like his dad.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like every single. We went to a restaurant literally in the parking lot because I took him out early because he was having a meltdown. And he's looking at all the tires and touching them, and then he takes off running to this big truck pointing at it, and I'm like, buddy, this isn't our truck. We gotta go back to our minivan. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So
How cute.
he's obsessed.
Uh-huh. That is so funny. So funny how their interests like show so soon.
Yeah, like I don't even know where he got it from. I mean, I know where he got it from, but it's not like Austin's been outside working on the trucks or the cars or anything lately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
funny. That's really cute though.
Yeah, so that's my mom era. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on the Mom Era podcast this week. We hope this episode on maintaining the relationship with your spouse after having a child is helpful. And we hope our experiences shed light into it's okay that things happen, and it's okay to work on your relationship and be going through the ever changing roles and responsibilities that come up as parents. So you can follow us at momera_podcast on TikTok or Instagram, or email us at momerapodcast@gmail.com. See you
Have a
next
good
week.
week. Bye bye.
Bye.
Next 2 weeks, I
Next two
guess.
weeks, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Bye bye.